Okay, good evening, everybody. Good to see so many people on board. Good to see all the commissioners. Haven't seen you in a while. This virtual meeting thing is something else. So without further ado, I'd like to call to order the Brunswick City Commission meeting dated Wednesday, October 21st. It's via teleconference via Zoom. We will have our our invocation have our Pledge of Allegiance recited by um, our own Commissioner Felicia Harris. So please bow your heads for an invocation by Mayor Pro Tem Julie Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to gather together as a community. We ask that your sovereign grace would be upon us now as we listen and deliberate on things related to moving forward with our city, improving things for all citizens. We ask that you would protect those that serve us in a capacity that they are daily in harm's way sometimes, our fire, our police, our emergency management, and others. And we thank you for the breath of life each day that you give us, the beauty in our community, and let us always be thankful for all that we have. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Commissioner Harris, for that. We have our agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to our agenda for this evening? I guess we don't have any. So here and then we'll just go right on into our meeting. Our first item on our agenda is our public comment. Madam Clerk, who do you have on our agenda for public comment?
Okay, we have first Brent Anderson.
Mr. Anderson, please just state your name and your address and then go ahead and speak. You have about 5 minutes, sir. If you are on board.
IT, do you see Mr. Anderson listed?
I do not see him.
Okay, move right on to another. Maybe he'll come back at another time. We maybe get him in, maybe.
Okay, we have Ralph Stephens.
Is he on board?
IT.
No, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
And last we have Scott McQuaid.
Scott McQuaid, is he on board?
Yes.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we barely can. Speak up a little louder, Scott.
Okay. I'll try my best so y'all can hear me. Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to join you this evening. And I want to thank you also for your leadership in these trying times. I'm here just to provide a public comment in regards to the Mary Ross master plan and specifically the splash pad that you'll discuss this evening. I commend the commission for all the hard work that's been done with the Mary Ross master plan. I think a lot of great work has been done, and we're encouraged to hopefully get more improvements happening in downtown. I just wanted to share some thoughts with you in regards to the splash pad specifically. One concern that I have, I think we all should consider, although I know the splash pad has changed its original position in the master plan, I would hate for us to put it in such a place that it might encumber future uses of the park. If we looked at the master plan survey results, we saw that the top 6 answers of respondents of what amenities they wanted tree and landscape improvements, waterfront access and boating improvements to the waterfront. And also a popular answer was amphitheater and event facility improvements. So as we look at improving that area with the splash pad, the last master plan that I saw, it was right next to the area in which the music events would be happening, or where the amphitheater stage was envisioned. And I would suggest if it goes in that area, it would be an accessory use to the amphitheater, making it really competing with that space. So I'm not here to oppose, of course, the commission or the splash pad. I'm just here to have you all think about something that Oliver Seabolt said when working on the master plan, and I'm quoting him from the Brunswick News. We need to do enough at the beginning of this plan to draw people here and come to the park. If we repair the existing bulkhead and improve the aesthetics, this will help create a draw rather than doing small piecemeal things. We have to think big. Of course, the budget limits our ability to do things really big, but when we consider this area already as a docking station for a cruise line, a tall ship, and an event venue, I just hope we don't create competing interests with the splash pad. And those are my comments for you this evening for your consideration. I just want to thank you again for your time this evening and for your service to our community.
Thank you, Mr. McQuaid. I appreciate your comments. They are very well received from your organization, the CVB. So we appreciate it very much. Are there any more comments? Anyone else on board who wants to make a comment?
No, Mayor, that concludes the public comment list.
Okay, is there anyone else who's on board who wants to say something before I close the comment period?
No, sir.
All right, okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. McQuaid. All right, if we move right along with our agenda, our first item is item number 1, which is Ms. Kate Shoemaker, Senior Account Executive from Bird Ride, Inc., to give a presentation regarding micro-mobility.
Hi, Mayor Harvey and team. Looking forward to speaking with you, and thank you for having me today. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So I have just a quick presentation here for some visuals. Bird, our mission is ultimately to partner with cities, and our vision is to create a sustainable transportation network. What is Bird, you may ask? You've maybe seen these scooters in bigger, larger cities across the US and the world. We are a last mile electric vehicle sharing company dedicated to really bringing affordable, environmental friendly transportation solutions to communities. E-scooters are ultimately replacing car trips, what we're seeing historically over the past few years. So they're a vehicle that people can use to get home, to get to work, to get to communities, or even to public transportation like buses, trains, and get around town in that first and last mile. Some of the transportation benefits of scooters is zero cost to you as the city. We do provide a distant open air transportation option, which right now across the US, a lot of cities are struggling with their capacity in buses and trains. So we offer another alternative mode of transportation there. Our goal, again, reducing carbon emission and offering supplemental trips, and also trying to alleviate the parking. So e-scooters are safe. I know that that's top of mind for many cities. We are comparable to bikes in the way that scooters move around town. Our at-ground deployment strategy and ground operations, we have a new program called Fleet Manager, which we would be running, where we would actually employ a local entrepreneur to run the business model. Bird would source, qualify partners and members in the community, which would open up job opportunities in Brunswick, would offer some personal, point of contact for the community if issues arise, and is a really, really high touch service. So there's no scooters forgotten or clutter happening in the streets. We work with partners to make sure that we address any of those situations from the management style with our local fleet managers. The way that you would rent a Bird, in case anybody isn't familiar with the company, is you would open up the Bird app, you would look for an available scooter or walk by one. You would then scan that scooter and you'd start to ride the electric scooter. You would then be able to park that wherever you want within the operating zone. So they are free floating, and that, again, fleet manager and local entrepreneur would be able to go pick those scooters up throughout the day to keep them clean and in high demand locations and reallocated back from potential neighborhoods back into the city center. There is a ton of in-app education. Bird is the leading scooter business. So we have everything from rider onboarding to educate users that don't know scooters and aren't familiar. We have rider tutorials that you can dive into deeper, or any local rules that you may want to have, like no sidewalk riding or different rules or regulations that you come up with. We do also have ride app notifications and parking suggestions to help to navigate people and learn how to start to integrate scooters into society. One of my favorite examples is back in the day when there were automobiles, or there were horses and then automobiles came into society. People were like, oh my gosh, how do we integrate automobiles into our horse-drawn carriage societies? The same thing is happening with scooters today. And the more that you embrace it and kind of work with us to make sure that they integrate properly, the better that it's going to happen. And what we see is that scooters and micromobility really are the future of transportation and really help a ton. So we do have a ton of technology that has been developed. We have ride zones where we'd be able to ixnay out any areas that you don't want people to ride in, and we'd also be able to create a perimeter of where people can ride. We have parking reminders of asking people to park properly, respectfully, and then we also have recommended parking areas. Even though they are free floating, we like to have people keep things clean. We'll be able to provide you with data on the services and work with you throughout this partnership. Our goal would be to get started with a small fleet of 50 scooters and then grow from there. My last slide is just kind of closing out with a case study from Bridgewater, Virginia. We recently started that and we were active within 3 weeks of city approval. We started with 50 scooters, and those 50 scooters in a small town of 6,000 people seeing over 100 rides per day. So it's about 2 rides per scooter. And it's really a small college town and not much infrastructure there, but the community is really embracing it and appreciating the services. So with that, that's our overall ask, is to get approval from the city to source and find a local fleet manager in Brunswick and start with a small pilot of 50 scooters and kind of grow from there and work with you as needed.
Well, are there any questions for Ms. Shoemaker concerning Bird or Bird Ride Inc. commissioners?
I have a question, Mayor. Ms. Shoemaker, how many communities have you gone into that already had some ordinances or traffic rules and regulations regarding scooters, motorized scooters,
Yes.
versus coming into a community and then having issues and having to address all of those issues?
So it goes both ways. Bird's live in over 30 cities globally. We started, and we were the ones that started scooters. So there weren't any regulations when we got started. Now that regulations are starting to open up, we see some communities already having examples. One example that I can give as kind of a case study example is with San Diego. They requested that we had some more education for riders. And so we improved upon and added some in-app alerts to basically train and help. And then also including different game days that were happening, we added alerts and notifications. So depending on the ask, we are able to adopt and help you to change things. But we have globally leading, I would say, best practices that we're going to come in with our best suggestion, and then we can adapt from there. Does that answer your question?
Yes. How do you regulate someone who is underage using a scooter?
We verify and have users verify their age and sign a user agreement. But just like riding a car, there has to be some type of police enforcement because there's no way to prevent someone who's underage to drive a car. Same with scooters. But we do have a rider agreement that is required for signature. And we can also turn on a license scan for the app if required for your city as well.
Okay. And my last question is, I mean, we're a relatively small community, so we really don't have a lot of bike lane striping, bike lanes really anywhere. We're moving in that direction, but we're not there. So how do you control, the way the traffic flows and how people operate those scooters?
So they would be advised to go where bikes go. So anywhere that bikes are going, whether it's a shared lane or a dedicated bike lane, that would be where the scooters would move. We have many towns that don't have much infrastructure bike lanes, and that's something that they're planning on doing in the future. But as now, you would just have the scooters go in the shared lanes. We do limit them from any roads that go above 35 miles per hour, so we can block off certain roads as needed.
And I'm assuming since Georgia has a helmet law, people would need to bring and provide their own helmets.
Yes, depending on the laws and regulations, people would use their own helmets.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions?
Further questions for Ms. Shoemaker, excuse me.
I have a question, Mayor.
Yes.
What's the probability of continuation of service? I mean, how many communities have you all went in and basically had problems with the service being continued, based on the ridership or based on continuing fleet management or that kind of thing?
So that's a great question. And historically, it was difficult for us to manage smaller population towns because we had to have a general manager, we had to have a service center, we had to have a pretty robust staff in order to operate a specific town. But with the introduction of the fleet manager program, we're able to enter into smaller towns. And so our goal is to enter into hundreds of towns across the US in the next year. With this fleet manager program, where that dedicated entrepreneur that we'll source and partner with is going to cut out the need for a lot of those bigger, service centers and uplift. So as long as that fleet manager is feeling valued with their time, the likelihood would be for continuation of services, as long as we're able to keep kind of theft rates down, which should be, just fine. So we hope to stay for a long time and have this as a great part of the city.
Okay, I got a question. Have you guys talked to Jekyll Island Authority or either St. Simon's Island? The county?
I am not sure. Those aren't ringing a bell off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, the reason why I ask, their communities are more closed in. Our community is kind of spread out. So that's why I asked.
Okay, well, spread out is also means people need transportation to get around.
That's true. I understand that.
Potentially, but yes, we are right now in the process of reaching out to a ton of cities in the US that are, well under 75,000 folks. So you guys are, right there in the middle of the pack there.
Okay. How many cities in Georgia have you reached out to?
I think we have a list of a handful. I'm not sure on the top of my head, but I know that we are live in Atlanta, and we have a strategy team which has looked at different things and identified a handful of cities that we're reaching out to. So we do have a strategy team that's looked into Brunswick and verified that we think that it would be a good fit.
Yes. Well, you spoke also about ordinances that local ordinances and regulations that will have to be adopted for the use of the scooters and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that process in other cities?
So we have a suggested MOU, which basically lists out the basic terms that other cities use. I can send that along, which has some of the general regulations. We start with that typically, have it pilot for about 6 months. And then if you want to build out ordinances, if there's anything specific that you find is important or you want to alter in there, then we can build upon any permits or structure. But typically cities will just say, welcome to come, start it out. And then more sophisticated, larger cities will build out a permit process where there's specific rules and guidelines that we have to follow. Some of them being more strict and some of them being more flexible with just a specific amount of scooters that they limit.
Okay, thank you.
So is there a charge to the communities that you establish a relationship? And if not, how do you sustain your business model?
So the charge is to the rider. So it's like renting, you would walk up to the scooter, it would be $1 to unlock and roughly 30 cents per minute. So an average ride is about $5 per ride, depending on how long that you're using the scooter for. And we look to aim to have at least 2 to 3 rides per scooter per day. So we won't oversaturate the market. We'll start small, see what the demand is on that scooters. And if we're seeing really high demand, we may add a little bit more, but we would like to keep the demand and the number of scooters at that 2 to 3 ride threshold.
This is Commissioner Harris. Question for me is that how do you integrate the leisure scooter riders that's already here, that's not riding your scooters, that's riding their own scooters, because we do have people that do use scooters as transportation now,
Awesome.
be they of age or underage.
Yeah, so the shared scooters are meant for whether maybe I'm out shopping or I'm at a friend's house and I don't have my personal scooter with me. I may rent a bird scooter, or if I want to take a bird scooter somewhere and I don't want to be responsible for my personal scooter, bike, or car, so that I'm able to take a taxi or another form of transportation back to my location. So folks that have personal use scooters are likely to use the bird scooters. Same with someone who regularly drives a car, bike, really goes towards all demographics of folks that use the scooters.
Okay, any further questions, commissioners?
Yes, so Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you can hear me clearly, but my question would be, as far as the students are concerned, what's the age ranges, or is there a age-specific group that you're targeting? What's to prevent a 13-year-old from jumping on one of these scooters and having an accident or something of that nature?
So the age range we have would be over 18 years old. Typically 18 to 40 is our core demographic of folks that use the scooters. And we do have a potential license scan or just a user rider agreement that everyone signs on during that onboarding process to create an account. You do have to verify your age.
Okay. Any other questions or comments, commissioners?
And what, see, these are the things that I'm concerned about. What's to prevent more than one individual from riding a scooter at one time?
That would be law enforcement. So if you're, police, we have in-app notifications and in-app training to suggest that that does not happen. But if people are getting in trouble for it, they likely won't do it as soon as they hear someone gets in trouble. So we would look towards, your enforcement as the city to prevent that from happening.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentation.
I got one other question.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner Williams.
Have you spoken with our police chief, our police department about this in any way, so that they'll be aware of what's about to happen, if it's going to happen in Brunswick, and what are they saying?
The goal would be to get approval from you as the city before approaching the police, as their goal would be to kind of support your decision of allowing scooters in the proper way. So we will do that when we hopefully get approval.
That's all your questions, Commissioner Williams? Looks so. Again, thank you, Mr. Shoemaker. I really appreciate you coming and sharing the presentation with us. We will take all this under consideration and advisement. Also, we'll be checking with our attorney as well for possible what we need to do legal wise. So, and I'm sure we will be getting back with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. All right, Commissioner, let's move right along. Our next item is item number 2, zoning ordinance revision project. Eric Landon, Director of Planning and Government Services, and Ross Moraine, Senior Planner, Coastal Regional Commission will be presented.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Can you guys hear me okay?
Gotcha.
Okay, good. Happy to be with you. Again, my name is Eric Landon. I'm the Planning Director for the Regional Commission. I have Russ Moraine here with me, who is working on the zoning ordinance update. We started working on this project with Mr. Hunter in your planning office this summer, and we have our directive was to update the zoning ordinance. So we have read the document several times. We met with your planning commission twice. We've discussed several different options with John, and we have about a half a dozen recommended changes, some of which we've already drafted. And then I can run through those quickly, see if those spur any questions, and then we can go from there. The first item that we saw based on our discussions with the Planning Commission and with your staff and our reading was to make the document more user-friendly. Examples of that would be to clarify the definitions and make some more user-friendly tables so you didn't have to flip back and forth at looking at long lists. If you had a quick and easy accessible table that you could get your question answered quickly, that would make it more user-friendly, along with a clear definition that you don't have to read 5 times to try and figure out what it's trying to say. So Russ has actually drafted some definitions and has those available to review. I think John has been looking at those. The second item that we've drafted for you is an update of the sign ordinance. Sign ordinances are notoriously difficult, so we have drafted what we feel like is kind of the best practices for a sign ordinance. The third item is we drafted an update of the buffer ordinance. That was one of the items specifically that your planning commission was interested in. Number 4 was protecting neighborhood commercial zones. That was another item that came up from the planning commission. They were concerned about some conflicts between commercial uses, specific commercial uses and neighborhoods. So we want to look to protect those. The next item is, again, these are items that we've come up with working with your staff and the planning commission, is conflicts between residential uses and densities and second dwellings and accessory dwellings and accessory uses. So just making sure that, and we also home-based businesses. So looking for conflicts in residential zones was an item that we're working on. And we got some specific direction from the planning commission on that last week when we met with them. And I'd be happy to add to that if you wish. The next item was looking at corridors, Highway 17, Bay Street, Norwood Street. All of those were important to the planning commission so that we look at the uses, what's permitted in the commercial and high density residential corridors. An item that Russ came up with that he presented to the planning commission that they were enthusiastic about was creating an institutional zone that links the hospital, the college, and the high school. If you kind of think about it, the high school students end up going across the street to the college, and then the college students end up going a few blocks over to the hospital. So that seemed a good link where we can create an institutional zone. And it would also help as the hospital grows and expands and starts consuming a larger footprint, how we can do that constructively where it's not piecemeal together and there's a larger plan in place so that that transition can happen, because it appears that the hospital intends to grow and we hope that it grows. So we want to do that in a way that the city appreciates. So trying to get public involvement in this plan is, again, we've met with your planning commission twice. We've sent John a questionnaire that he has sent out to as many people as possible to try and get feedback. And we would also like to ask you for stakeholders. We would love to have some stakeholder involvement. So if you know of a business owner or an employer or a builder or an engineer in the city that would make a great stakeholder, we would love to have them participate in this plan. We don't want to write it in a vacuum. We want to make sure that we're doing what the city wants and provide a good product to you. So really, I just wanted to give a summary of kind of where we're at, what we're working on, and moving forward. Our largest desire would be to receive some stakeholder recommendations from you. I think probably the easiest way would be to send those to John, and we could, along with your planning staff, reach out to those stakeholders, set up interviews. And we would love to interview you individually if you're interested in the zoning ordinance and would like to participate. We would happily meet you one-on-one and kind of go through what we're working on and why, and see if you had anything that you would want to add. Specifically, it comes down to 2 questions. It's what do you enjoy about the city that you want to make sure to keep? And then what do you not like when you're out walking, driving around, that you want to kind of start to eliminate? So we want to make sure to keep what you love, and we want to find ways to start losing the things that you don't love through zoning. So I'll leave it there, and I'll be open and to any questions that you may have. And again, we have Russ here as well, so I'd be happy to help.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure we have questions. One question I'll just ask right away: what's an institutional zone? What is that?
Russ, do you have any initial thoughts on? It was his idea, so I don't want to steal his thunder from him. So go ahead, Russ, and talk about institutional zone. I think you got it. There you go.
Yeah. Well, basically, as Eric said, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. You've got 3 very large institutions in a confined area: the hospital, the high school, and the college. All are interrelated to each other and all are expanding. And in order to protect the neighborhoods that surround these institutions and prevent piecemeal expansion, by creating an institutional zone, you can require longer range planning on the part of the institution so that that expansion takes place in an orderly manner. A good example are the parking lots that serve the hospital that are across Parkwood Drive, and all of the employees that park there and some of the visitors have to cross Parkwood at, at pedestrian crossing lights. And you see piecemeal parking lots being developed all around the hospital. That's an example. And the other thing that you might want to think about is housing for the employees at the hospital, the college, and teachers at the high school. And by creating an institutional zone with opportunities to assemble land for housing that workers and employees at all of these institutions can live in would be a great asset to all of them. That's kind of the thought we had, and to provide some orderly transformation of uses in that area.
That's good. I think Commissioner Kaysen has always talked about that anyhow. One of the things too is that who's going to develop the qualifications for that zone, that type of zoning? I imagine we need some type of reference as to why we want to, the reason why we want to do that, to keep from infringing on our residential areas as well.
Right. Well, we would work with the Planning Commission, the staff, and City Council, and the stakeholders in developing the zone within that zone, and get a lot of participation and feedback, and of course with the institutions themselves. So that's kind of the process we would follow.
Okay. Commissioners, your questions?
I have a question, Mayor. Mr. Landon, how do y'all interact with, say, our tree ordinance, our tree board, especially along Highway 17 and Norwich Street? Because we've seen with the last couple of developments on the east side of 17, where we've lost huge, beautiful oak trees. And, we have some along the Norwich Street corridor as well. So I think that we would want to ensure, to the degree that those huge trees can be worked around or in some fashion, be given the recognition that they should have.
That's exactly the kind of feedback we're looking for, is we want advocates of things that you love in the city, so that we make sure that we beef up those regulations to preserve those things. So tree preservation, now that you mentioned it, is officially on our radar, and we'll be sure to look at your existing regulations and see if we can find some best practices that we can recommend. But
Thank you.
We pick up everything that we can from a read, but we really need the stakeholders that are invested in particular things. I'm sure everybody on the Zoom call has something that they're particularly passionate about with the city. So we want to make sure to keep and preserve those things. So thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Yeah, certainly, because when a 200-year-old oak tree comes down and it's replaced by 4, 8-inch, 6-inch caliper whatevers, it's a very poor substitute, I think.
Absolutely.
And this is Commissioner Harris. My comment would be in lines with what the mayor has said, and with the institutional plans proposed, is the encroachment on our residential area within that hospital area. That's very vital. The hospital has eaten up a lot of our residential properties out there, and those properties have now been taken off of our tax roll. And we don't want to see that heightened. We want to see, if it's going to be done, that those properties are going to be put back on the tax roll, and not depreciate our tax roll, but appreciate our tax roll.
Also, sir, I'll say, you said something about your stakeholders that whether the commissioners were like to be interviewed or be involved. I'll tell you, we are heavily involved with zoning, and we are very much concerned about our city as well. So it would be nice, it would be good for you to have us to interview us as well.
Okay, be happy to.
All right. Further questions, commissioners? Well, thank you, Mr. Landon. Thank you, Mr. Maureen. That's happened.
Rain, yes.
Maureen. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you, and we'll work through John to set up interviews with all of you, and hopefully pick up some stakeholders from you when we have our discussions. Thank you for the time.
That'd be great, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioners, we have, we went through our public comment period and 2 individuals was not here. I just learned that they have arrived, so I'm going to open that back up for them to have their say so to their government. So, Madam Clerk, will you call the first person?
Yes, Mayor. Brent Anderson.
Mr. Anderson, step forward and state your name and your address, and then you have 5 minutes, sir.
Good morning, afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Why am I not on a camera here?
I don't know.
Oh, great.
We can hear you loud and clear, though.
Am I back?
You are. We hear you loud and clear.
Unfortunately, I don't have the technological know-how to put the pictures that I wanted to bring to you online.
Anderson, please give us your address, please.
Name and address.
My name is Brent Anderson, my wife Susan. We have a business at 2524 Stadium Street here in Brunswick. I'm here to tell you what happens to our business when you, the city of Brunswick, doesn't take care of yours. In 2015, my wife and I purchased an old house on Albany Street that hadn't been lived in for 20 years. We found both the building department and the fire department very helpful and cooperative in bringing this building back to life. In talking with some local businesses at the time, we heard rumors of difficulties thrown at them from the city to get their businesses up and running, but ours was an extremely positive experience. So we looked for another building. The building that we found is the Credit Union building on Albany Street, next to Edo Miller Park. 5 years empty, but still in relatively good condition. We purchased the building at 2524 Stadium Street on July 31st of this year. Our initial questions were answered timely and with good follow-up by Mr. Charnock. Then one day he just disappeared. He didn't answer his phone. He didn't return calls. No message said that he was gone. He just disappeared. Apparently, no one of the hundreds of employees of the city thought to reroute or at least change the phone message that he was sick and would be out for a while. So we continued our adventure. The road had been torn up for a few weeks when we took possession, and there was no access to the building. We talked to Dee at the corner service station to move a few cars for us, and we figured out a way to drive down the sidewalk to reach our building. It didn't help any for deliveries. I'm going to try showing a photograph and see if it works. No. There we go. After 5 or 6 days, that truck finally agreed to give it a shot and came down the sidewalk. His fear was not only the sidewalk, but he had to drive through that lake in order to get to the sidewalk. Can everyone see this? We had already been to the water department to change the account. We were told the water had been turned off, so it came as a bit of a surprise when we got to the building and the toilets didn't work. The water department sent a man out to check out why, only to find out the water from the main had been disconnected to the building. We should have water by next Thursday, we were told after getting a hold of the city. With some discussion, we were told by Tony that we could have water within 3 days. That would be on a Monday. The temporary line was run across our parking lot entrance so that, and told that it would be removed after testing was done, probably by the end of the week. That was 10 weeks ago. That line is still running across the front of our driveway. One of the 4 times we had the water turned off, no one came back to turn it on. I called the water department and was told they didn't do it. It must have been the construction crew, call them. Well, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I wasn't about to be on a phone chase. Finally, after a good deal of discussion, the water department grudgingly sent someone to turn it back on. But another afternoon of our time was wasted. In total, the water's been a problem 4 times in 2 months. And we have been told repeatedly by that the temporary line does not need to be moved. The temporary line runs across the main part of our driveway into our parking lot. We have 2 entrances into the property. A small one by the bank as an exit for the drive-up teller, and the main entrance into our driveway, into our parking area. It's the main entrance that's been blocked by this temporary line for 10 weeks now. And Mr. Albertson says that it's not necessary to move it. I have no idea when it will be moved, hopefully eventually. The previous owner had left a lot of furniture behind, so we set up a sale and advertised, only to find out that the following morning after we advertised, the road crew ran the curbing, the cement curbing, so that we could no longer enter our property through the goofy method we had done across the sidewalk. So at the last minute, we had to reroute traffic over a mile to get back to our property. They had to go down to McDonald's and go down to Goodyear and across Goodyear to the middle of the park, through the park, down another sidewalk, and back to our building. Over a mile. Oop, sorry about these things.
Mr. Anderson, I believe you probably need to show that to our staff as we move forward. It's kind of hard for us to make out while you are showing it to us right now.
This is the causeway. So down the causeway, past McDonald's, down to Goodyear, past Goodyear, back to Allen Stadium, and then through the park, winding through a dirt road in the park back over to our building. A very convoluted route to get back to where we were. We hand painted signs. We put out signs to get a few people to come and see us. And they had to drive down another sidewalk. Oh, to get to where we are. Honey, would you help me over here?
Mr. Anderson, it's kind of hard for us to make out when you put that on the screen. So therefore, I'll suggest that you get those items to our staff so they can really, really see what's going on.
I can do that.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. I will probably.
I have several photographs that show that the road crew has repeatedly blocked off the road
Yes.
after Mr. Alberson has told us the road was available. On one occasion, the next morning, we came and there was equipment parked across the road. We called Mr. Alberson, who showed up a short time later after telling us, oh, that couldn't possibly be. They wouldn't do that. He admitted that they did do it and walked my wife, back through the park to show us how easy it was to get to our building. And we didn't need four-wheel drive to get to our building. And then it rained. And after it rained, we had 3 inches of water in our parking lot because the city had piled the debris from a trench they were digging in the exact spot where our parking lot drained, and my parking lot filled with water. My tenants had to take off their shoes to get to their car because there was 4 inches of water in my parking lot. Fortunately, I sent some emails, and fortunately there was a crew here the next morning to remove the debris. But the trucks that came in could not exit out our main driveway because of the temporary water line. So they went around our building and exited off of the exit for the bank teller window. The sidewalk and area and that side of the building, the concrete is not in particularly good repair. And now it has heaved to the point where it's difficult to drive across it at all because heavy trucks have had to go back and forth across that side of the driveway instead of across our main drive. In the same token, those heavy trucks, before they opted to go across around our building, decided to cut across our front yard. I have photographs of this as well. I'm sorry I can't show you exactly what I'm talking about, but I have tire tracks of some of these vehicles where the tires are a foot wide and they're driving across our water line. The people that put the temporary water line in warned me not to have heavy vehicles drive across this part of our yard because it could damage our main water line coming into the building. Obviously, nobody told the contractor the same thing because they repeatedly drove across that to the point where I now have ruts. The heavy rains and the trucks moving in and out of the temporary road that was designated for us to drive on after we got off of the sidewalk onto our property turned into mud ruts. These mud ruts were deep enough that four-wheel drive trucks got stuck. So they brought sand in to help alleviate the problem. The dump truck dropping the sand got buried up to its axles and had to be pulled out by a huge front end loader. Now that route was totally impassable. So the city decided that we could have a little bit of gravel off of our one exit so that we could at least get the people who had cars in our parking lot home, out of our parking lot and home.
Mr. Anderson, it seems that you have had some issues dealing with our construction on L Street. And that I don't know whether have you had talked with our city manager concerning those issues or not. And also I tell you that a lot of your issues have been due to the other authority, Joint Water and Sewer Authority. We have no jurisdiction over them at all. And I know we don't have so much time tonight. However, I would love for you to bring your complaint to our city manager, and also if you need one of our commissioners to sit in too as well. I'm pretty sure we can get one of the commissioners to sit in with you as you go through the issues that you are having concerning the construction of L Street. Now, my question to you before you move on is that, are you still having these issues?
As of Monday morning, we had 2 pieces of heavy equipment and 2 trucks in our parking lot. No one asked if we had any activity going on, if we needed our parking lot, if it was okay if they used our parking lot. They were just there. So yeah, it's still going on. Nobody is communicating with us. Nobody's talking to us. The only communication we get is when we demand we get communication.
And I need one word.
The fact that we've had no garbage collection, we've had no road access, we've had no mail service, our deliveries are delayed. Does the city have no part in any of this?
Sir, we are paving that road, so you can deduce that we do have some type of interest in getting you.
Do you think an ambulance or a fire truck could have found our building in an emergency?
Okay. Settle
That's
down.
not for me to answer, but sir, I'll tell you this. I would like for you to speak with our city manager, and so we can alleviate some of those issues. I can't go back and ring that bell that happened to you, the issues, but we can, moving forward, we can do some things to try to alleviate those issues that's happening with you. And this is only a public comment, but I feel that you need to have some type of relief. Therefore, I would like for you to speak with our city manager and possibly maybe one of our commissioners and see if we can get you some relief over there on L Street.
Okay.
My wife has one quick comment.
Yes, sir. And then we can wrap it up. Yes.
Okay. On September 1st, Mr. Albertson looked me in the eye and said, we would have a road in place in 6 to 8 weeks. That takes us to November 19th, which is getting dangerously close to the holiday season. By then we would have a real road, not an over the river, jerry-rigged through the woods road. We are taking a chance and bringing guest artists and telling our in-house artists to prepare for a holiday sale. We are scheduling teachers and starting classes. We're doing all of this starting the 18th of November, which is how things happen to turn out. We have hired marketing and consultants, and we are working on other advertising. And I ask that you please help us to be successful here. It's been uphill. Our in-house people have been fabulous and patient with us, but we can't ask it to last forever. They're losing tires. They're having car issues from going through ditches, and we do need help. Thank you for your consideration.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your comment. Thank you, Mr. Anderson, as well for your comment. And our city manager will be contacting you to find out how we can help alleviate some of these issues that you're having.
Thank you.
And also, hopefully one of our commissioners will be doing the same thing as going out there too as well. And we apologize for the inconvenience that we have caused. So thank you again, Mr. Anderson. Thank you again, Ms. Anderson as well. So
Thank you.
All right.
Mayor Harvey, I have interfaced. I have been out there. I've spoken with the Andersons several times. I have to say, they've had deplorable conditions out there and have really not been treated fairly. I don't think anybody in the city has stepped up to the plate to offer some solutions and some way for them to conduct their business during this time period. So,
Okay.
My suggestion would be if we could get Ms. McDuffie involved and have somebody who can be accountable and follow up and follow through and stay in communication, because communication is a huge part of it. If they're trying to do things and they don't know what's going to happen next, it makes it very challenging.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So we will do exactly that. We will get our city manager involved with this. Okay.
Well, and it sounds like there needs to be some kind of collaborative or joint meeting between the city, joint water and sewer, the contractors, whomever else is parking and putting equipment on their property, because even though the city has a part in this, we're not the sole players in this mishap. And so I think they do deserve the opportunity to be heard with everybody there together, so that everybody together can be hearing the same thing. That's all of the parties that are at hand in whatever mishap is going on in that area. And I'm out in that area because I'm at the football games and stuff too, so I do see it. But I think that all of these parties that have played a part in this need to be brought to the table and given an opportunity for them to be heard, and for resolution to be presented by all of these parties, not just the city.
I agree, Commissioner Harris. I agree with you 100%. Okay. Anybody want to comment before I move right along? Okay, then we shall move right along. Again, thank you, Mr. Anderson, for your comment, and we will try to alleviate that situation as quickly as possible. Madam Clerk, next person.
Ralph Steffens.
Mr. Stafford, please state your name and your address, please, as you come forward.
Mr. Mayor, my name is Ralph Staffens, and I am with the Chamber of Commerce. Our address is 1505 Richmond Street.
Yeah.
I sent a letter to you earlier today, Mr. Mayor, and copied Ms. McDuffie on it. As you know, our Chamber Board of Directors, the Brunswick Golden Isles Chamber, met this morning. During this meeting, we discussed the splash pad that's proposed at Mary Ross Park in beautiful downtown Brunswick, Georgia. We discussed this with many of our shared vision partners. We would like to be on the record as opposing this splash pad at Mary Ross Park. The Chamber and the Visitors Bureau are not opposed to installing a splash pad at a different location, but we do think that the current location could be used in a more beneficial manner for both the public and our local economy. Mary Ross Park has the potential to be a true travel destination for visitors and Glenn County residents alike, drawing in money from all over our community and region. This would drive investment, it would create jobs, and it would increase wealth in downtown Brunswick, in the downtown district. The Mary Ross Park Master Plan does not call for a water feature of this caliber and this size in this location. We're worried about taking up a whole lot of area in one of the most prime pieces of real estate in our city, one of the only waterfront pieces of property. This piece of property we think could be utilized. The project could be utilized in a different area in our community. In fact, when I first started hearing about this, several of the event organizers from our largest events that utilize Mary Ross Park shared some real concerns about not being able to utilize that park for their events, let alone attracting any new events to that space. And so in the spirit of true collaboration, I just ask that you and the commissioners table this discussion to a time when we can get together, the business community and all the commissioners, and discuss it a little bit further in person. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Stafford. I appreciate your last comment about getting together and not just making a decision based before you have a discussion with this commission. I really appreciate that part about your comment. Okay.
Absolutely.
Again,
we want to be a collaborative partner. We value our relationship with the city, and we just want to help.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, Commissioner, we're going to close out our public comment. Thank you for indulging me to allow those individuals to speak. As I always say, it is really a good thing when your residents can come and address their government. I think that's more than they have that right to do that, and that is how government works hand in hand. Okay, we're at item number 3, pedestrian crossing at 4th Street and Newcastle Street. Mr. Garrett Albertson, our city engineer and public works director, will be presenting.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? All right. Wanted to bring an item to your attention. I got a call a couple of weeks ago from the GDOT office in Jessup about potential pedestrian improvements at the intersection of 341 or Newcastle Street and the intersection of 4th Avenue and Ross Road there at the south end of the cemetery and Selden Park. I know we have asked for several years now for some type of traffic control there at that intersection to try to help facilitate pedestrian movements across the intersection and try to improve safety and whatnot at the intersection. So GDOT has proposed this design. And so I just wanted to bring it to your attention, get your thoughts on it, get your input on it, and communicate back to GDOT what we're looking for to see out there. I'm gonna try to share my screen here and we'll talk just a second about the design. Can you see that graphic on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Basically, as you know, you've got 2 lanes in either direction with a center turn lane and a pretty wide shoulder on each side, northbound and southbound side. Their proposed design would come in here and create concrete medians. Those are shown in green on the north and south end of the intersection in north and southbound directions to create a dedicated left turn lane southbound onto 4th Street and northbound onto Ross Road. That would leave 2 through lanes in each direction, with the outside lane in each direction being a right turn lane, northbound onto 4th Street and southbound right turn onto Ross Road. Then in the middle of the intersection, they're proposing a large raised concrete median island to help channelize the turning movements, but also to give pedestrian refuge, a place for pedestrian crossing the road to kind of take a break and in the middle of traffic rather than trying to cross 5 lanes of traffic all at once. You can see there their proposed design has pedestrians crossing from the south side of 4th Street out to the median island and then continuing across to the north side of Ross Road. There would be these rapid rectangular flashing beacons at this location. Those are the flashing strobe lights which are activated by a pedestrian as they are ready to cross. We did talk about a little more advanced warning system, what's kind of referred to as their Hawk system for pedestrian crossings, but GDOT says that the traffic counts and pedestrian counts at this intersection don't warrant that upgraded system. So another feature of this design is that because of the pedestrian island in the middle of the intersection, it would prohibit left turns from Ross Road and 4th Street onto Newcastle Street. Ross Road left turning northbound and 4th Street left turning southbound. Those movements would be prohibited. You would only be able to turn right coming out of each of those roads. So So that's the design in a nutshell. As you probably know, we're also working on a traffic study project for the Bay Street corridor study. And that includes the length of this roadway from I-95 all the way down into the city, along Bay Street, along the waterfront, and all the way out to Highway 17 on the south end. There are several particular focal points of that study along that corridor. And this is one of those focal points. We've asked the contractor to, make this intersection a priority in that study. And they have recently been in the process of finishing up their traffic counts and analyzing their data in that study. And this area is one of the areas where they collected traffic data, traffic volumes, turning movements, and that kind of thing. They have not finished analyzing that data and of course don't have any recommendations yet. I did forward this design to the consultant, and they said they didn't have any major objections to this design from a safety standpoint, but there may be, after they have a time to go through their study, they may be able to come up with a better design. So GDOT has just asked that we review this plan or review this design and communicate back to them our thoughts on it, whether or not we would like to see this go forward. This design, as they've proposed, would not come at any cost to the city. GDOT would fund 100% of this design, these improvements. They're not completely sure how they would fund it. If it was funded as a quick response project, it would probably be installed within the next year. If not funded with a quick response, it'd be a longer term project. Probably would not happen in the next year, maybe a couple of years down the road. That I think is driven by the cost of the improvements as well as any coordination that may be involved with the railroad. Apparently, if there is coordination with that railroad crossing right there, that excludes quick response projects. So just wanted to bring this to y'all's attention and get a few thoughts on it so that we can communicate back to GDOT whether we like this design, we'll see it kind of progress, or if we'd like to take more time and look at it, have our consultant kind of flesh it out a little more during the Bay Street project, or just kind of see where y'all are at on that intersection there.
Okay, questions, commissioners?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor. So looking at the design, basically, if you're coming off of 4th Street headed west towards Selden Park or Ross Road, you would have to make a right turn. You couldn't proceed straight across to Ross Road.
That's right. A vehicle coming westbound on 4th Street trying to go to Selden Park would have to make a right turn and go up to, is it 7th Street at the north end of the cemetery, and then turn in and come down through the cemetery to Selden Park. Yes, you're right.
Or first, or, a different avenue.
Well, you cannot turn left out of 4th to go to 1st.
No, I just meant once you understand what's at that intersection and what your limitations might be, you figure out an alternate way to get into Selden Park. Is all.
Right. Yeah, you would have to make your route changes before you came to that intersection. Exactly.
So even when you exit, you only can exit going south. So if I'm from, perhaps, I'm just using this as an example, out of town from Jessup, Georgia, I've got to figure out how to go back toward downtown, turn around and get back on 341 North. I don't know.
You're
That's-
breaking up. I didn't really understand your question.
I was saying, even when you're leaving the park, let's say you're leaving the park, you're leaving, going out to Newcastle, you can only make a right turn. And if you want to go north, you have to go down, I don't know how far before you could make that turn or make that turnaround to go back north on Newcastle.
Right, exactly. You sure would. And, you know, that I guess there's a concern there. If people wanted to go straight north, would they go down there, you know, a few hundred feet and make an illegal U-turn? Which is certainly not a safe maneuver, but, you know, would that increase the likelihood of that kind of maneuvers in the road? I don't know. But
I think so.
you know, if somebody wants to go north out of Selden Park, especially if they're not from here, I mean, they're not likely probably to go through the neighborhoods and stuff down there and try to get turned around.
So is this the viable solution without putting a signal light there? I mean, it seems like GDOT avoids a signal light at all costs, and they'll go to measures such as this in order to facilitate a pedestrian crossing. I mean, it's well thought out. If you're totally taking a signal light off the table, but why is a signal light not the right solution for that situation?
I think GDOT operates on what they call warrants, which is their justification for placing traffic control in a certain area, whether it be stop signs, signal lights, guardrail, or whatever. And a lot of those warrants are based on traffic accidents and fatalities. So I think that the accident data here, I think they would say that there's not enough accidents here, vehicular accidents, to warrant a traffic signal there, a full traffic signal.
Well, we don't want to do that. We don't want to have an accident to cause them to put a light there. I mean, we want people to realize that we want people to be safe. So therefore a light will be good instead of us having an accident and then they respond to putting a traffic signal there. It's kind of backwards to me.
May I say something?
Yes.
This is too important an intersection for us to be entertaining anything like this. This is your way to get over from Highway 17 and to come to downtown Brunswick. This thing has got to be a lot more than what this is. I say that this doesn't even consider getting in and out of Selden Park properly. It doesn't address a college. It doesn't address a hospital. It doesn't really address anything. It certainly, I guess this goes back to when we had the state delegation at a meeting and the kid had been hit and had to be airlifted off of 341. I guess this is where this goes back to. Maybe it's before that, I don't know. Or maybe it's after that, but this is a serious intersection right here. And this just flat is not the detail in the thought that it needs. Nowhere close to it.
I totally agree with you, Commissioner Case.
As a matter of fact, it's ludicrous is what it is.
And I totally agree with Commissioner Kaysen, and I think we should tell GDOT that we reject this plan and basically ask them to, because obviously they didn't ask anybody about the primary uses of Fourth Road in terms of its access to downtown, because, you know, if you're coming all the way from 17 and then having to turn right. And Garo, you asked the question of whether people would make that illegal U-turn, and I can tell you right now, they will. And that to me makes it unsafe.
More dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, even if this were put in place, I would be extremely nervous about I don't care what age you are, trying to make that crossover as a pedestrian, because the rate of speed of cars coming through there is ridiculous. And I try to be very watchful on Bay Street at Gloucester, where they have the flashing beacon lights that we finally got them to install. And even then, people don't know how to utilize them. They don't know to hit them. You know, people start across the street. You've got to be so watchful. And I just think it's inadequate. I don't think it's gonna accomplish anything.
Well, and another thing is when GDOT tell us that the reason that they can't put up the beacons is because there's not enough pedestrian traffic to warrant it. Well, when you got pedestrians trying to cross an interstate, you're not going to have pedestrians, you know, I mean, it's not a place where they can cross. But if it was safer, there probably would be more traffic. So that's not, to me, a proper justification for what they've given.
I say we put 4 X's on it and we send it back to them.
I agree 100%.
Five exits on it.
Certainly, okay. Yeah, I will communicate this back to them and, you know, have them continue to work on their designs. And like I said, we'll have the consultant that's working on the Bay Street project. A conceptual design will also come out of that project. So we'll see what that is. And, you know, if we feel that's worthwhile, we can take that to GDOT as well. But I'm going to tell.
Garo, take a look at, we've been trying to get a traffic light there. Take a look at that. That's one of the main things that we would like to have there. Also, take a look at, it could be our first roundabout there. We need something to slow that traffic down. We need something, and we don't want to have our main entrance and exit point blocked. You're going to turn one way, which create even a more even a worse traffic situation. We don't want to do that. So please let them know that we really want a traffic signal there, or either, you know, a roundabout may suffice. I don't know. But what they have proposed now is not going to cut it.
I will relay those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, I would think that the cost of doing this is putting a traffic light there would be a lot cheaper than doing what they're proposing here.
I think a traffic light would be a lot cheaper too, but I'm not GDOT, I'll say. So I don't know their rationale for trying to what they propose here, because to me it makes things even worse.
Tells us they don't think very much of us. I know that.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, Gary, you have your marching orders. Please let GDOT know our comments, please.
I'll be in touch with them tomorrow. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, we're down to item number 4. Consider approval October 7, 2020 regular scheduled meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes.
I got a motion.
Second.
I got a second. Motion second for the approval of the October 7, 2020 regular scheduled meeting minutes. Are there any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed have the same sign? It appears the ayes have it. Thank you, commissioners. All right, item number 5. We're here, consider approval of a contractor for construction of restroom and splash pad support building at Mary Ross Waterfront Park. Mr. Al Verheim, who is the chairman of the URA, is presenting.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All righty. All right, so I spoke with officials at Athens, Clark County, because they have a splash pad they have two splash pads in Athens, Clark County. They have one that is adjacent to one of their community pools, and they have another splash pad in a different park that is a standalone, like we're proposing for Mary Ross Park. Our pad, I think, is 50 feet round. This one is, theirs is 60 feet. So I talked this morning with Mr. Jim Ferguson, and he has 15 years with running aquatics and 7 years running the splash pad and the pools at Athens, Clark County. In our email, I forwarded y'all an email, and with electric and water and sewer expenses, it came out to $47,000 in FY20 in Athens, Clark County. That number seemed high to him, and the reason why it's high is because that also includes for that park 2 soccer fields that they are irrigating on a regular basis. That's where the water's going. The cost of their water is $29,000, and most of that's going into the soccer fields. And they also have other buildings, bathroom buildings, and they have an office building in that park. And they also have outdoor lighting for night games at the soccer field. So that's most of the electric and water costs that we were given. And he verified that. Now Athens Clark County had to build a separate building to house the splash pad equipment and to have the bathrooms close enough to the splash pad as required. Theirs, in fact, included showers in the bathrooms. We were able to get a waiver from the county health department, so we didn't have to put showers in, but theirs does include showers. And again, it was put in over 7 years ago. Jim said that the only water that they really use at the splash pad, since it's a recirculating system, is when the splash pad initially starts up. And what he said is during that initial startup, the system is sucking the water out of the holding tank, and then it gets to a certain level where the float switch kicks in and it opens up the water valve to bring up the water level in the tank. So their water use really is minimal. The only other time they introduce new water into the system is when it's hot outside and the water gets warm, so they will introduce new water to cool the water temperature down at the splash pad. I put a comment in there about how much we have earmarked for chemicals, and I was using old numbers. The total amount that is budgeted for FY20 in the City of Brunswick budget to run the splash pad is $30,000. And that includes chemicals, bathroom cleaning, and all that. Now, Jim stated that their chemical costs are about $500 to $700 a year. And by regulation, they have to check the pH levels at the splash pad twice a day. And they have a certified CPO because they have, again, several aquatic features in Athens, Clark County. So we really have 3 options to look at for how we check the water. Do we have whoever checks Howard Coffin Park's pool check the splash pad pH levels? Do we pay a pool company? Or do we designate someone in Public Works to get certified and check the levels twice daily? Now, ACC, they operate their splash pad, obviously a lot shorter season than we do down here, but they run May through July, 7 days a week, 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And then in August through Labor Day weekend, they only had their splash pad open on weekends and from 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Obviously, our season's going to go a lot longer down here. We can start earlier and stay open later in the year. And that may increase our utility costs a little bit, but probably not a whole lot. Some of the maintenance, now that they've had a splash pad for 7 to 8 years, some of the maintenance items they've experienced have been that they've had to have their splash pad resurfaced. And he couldn't remember the cost. That was done 2 years ago. He speculates that the pad was not installed correctly, and that led to the premature failure of the surface coating. Every 2 years, Public Works puts a fresh coat of epoxy type paint on the pad just to freshen it up a little bit, the colors up, because that's due to fading from the sun and from the chlorine. They have replaced the gutter grates that surround the pad, and there's a gutter that will go around our pad to collect that water as it comes out through the fountains and off the splash pad. And what they found are those plastic grates eventually will degrade due to sun and chlorine, and the tabs break off and then they fall into the gutter. And those tabs will go into the basket of the filter, so they do get caught before they mess up the system. But they have had to replace those gutter grates at a cost of about $3,500. And that's the first time in 7 years that they had to do that. And on occasion, some of the unscheduled maintenances, some of the little kid features at the splash pad get broken by the big kids who want to go play on the little kid features. And that prompts repair or replacement of those. But that's been pretty minimal, he said, and also. The question came up last meeting about the fence, whether we need it or not. The fence in the proposal has a cost of $26,000. Athens Clarke County also has a 4-foot high fence with 2 gates around their splash pad. The gates are locked after hours and during the off season. And Jim, based on their experience, he highly recommends that we fence our splash pad. Some of the reasons are to protect the kids, give parents peace of mind that their kids don't run off into traffic, or hopefully we'll never have to worry about abduction, but that will also prevent that from happening. It also controls entry to the pad. Now, Athens Clarke County, they charge $1 to use the splash pad and swimming pools. And because it's a much bigger area, obviously they have 182,000 people in the Athens Clarke County area. So they get a lot of use out of their splash pad. They took in $24,000, $1 at a time for that, to use the splash pad. So they said as soon as they put it in, it was like a field of dreams. Kids and families came from all over the place to use that pad. The fence also protects the splash pad equipment when it's not in use, helps prevent kids from going into the pad after hours or when it's off, and keeps them from breaking, vandalizing the structure or the features. So based on what Jim and I talked about, I told him we have $30,000 in our budget to operate the splash pad. He truly believes that would be plenty of money. Because their electric and water costs were for the whole park, it's hard to determine exactly how much their water and electricity consumption was just for the splash pad. Any questions?
Well, I don't think any questions concerning the operations. You've given us a good feedback on basically the overall operation of that, the cost of operation. That's one sticking point for us last meeting. However, I still think on my part, I believe we are still wrestling with the high cost of that building, even though we know we're putting in extra restrooms as well. So that's something that we as a commission have to wrestle with. We had no idea that it would cost us, the cost will spiral that high. So Commissioner, you got any questions, comments?
Yeah, I still contend that $792,000 is just too much money to put there in the park with a splash pad. It's just too much. And if you go back to the write-up, the history of the write-up, some of the verbiage in there says that using the state contract is the most expeditious way to go. I don't understand all that. I really don't. I've said it before about state contracts, and I looked through the state contract on this thing pretty diligently, and I see all kind of stuff in there that is superfluous. So I don't think the use of the state contract is the right thing to do, but I am ready to let's get this thing out of the way and look at it in a different light And that's my take on it. Pardon me?
What kind of light are you talking about? Look at it in a different light. I don't understand you.
A different location, something, it's, we've got a splash pad, and I just don't think that we're looking at the right place to do a splash pad. Never have, as a matter of fact.
I would agree with Commissioner Kaysen. I think this is going to preclude a lot of other events in Mary Ross Park. We've purchased a splash pad. We have to work with that. I think the URA has done a good job in transitioning to try to facilitate this, but I think we might need to look at a different location for the splash pad. I think the cost has not been, really fully realized. That was sort of late in the game as far as, what kind of cost we were looking at. I do appreciate the URA pulling together the figures that we asked for as far as the operation and the annual budgetary amount that needs to be allocated each year for the operation. I do understand the need for fencing. I would agree with that. I don't think that we can skimp and save money by not putting fencing in. However, I just question the location and what that's going to do as far as taking up a huge swath of property at Mary Ross Park as far as other events and venues that we would have. I also think that we could do a better job in looking for grant opportunities. There are some grants through the DNR specifically for splash pads. And I'm talking about like $500,000. So I think that, we need to sit back and take a look at this, and to the degree that we can capture grant funding and other opportunities to fund this in a different location, that's what we might need to pursue.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Harris. I agree with Julie and Johnny to a certain extent. Location, I think that location was vetted well when we looked at it. Now, my drawback and what gets me is the price tag.
Yes.
Because I declare, we reviewed that stuff, and I do not recall it having a price tag of such. For me to have even gotten to the point of agreeing with the splash pad, we had vetted the cost and the totality of the installation or the installing of the splash pad. And by no means do I ever recall that the totality of this project would be over $1 million. I would never have agreed to it had that have been presented to me before, and it wasn't. The totality of it was, from my recollection, was between $500,000 to $600,000. It was nowhere near the price tag that I see now, and that's my drawback. You all know me well enough by now to know when it comes to the dollars. I have to step back and reassess that, because I cannot agree with that when we have other priorities such as College Park and other areas that are suffering from flooding. And we're talking about putting over $1 million in a splash pad at Mary Rose Park. I love the work that the URA has done, but I just cannot, I can't go with a price tag of such.
There are so many other opportunities available to draw people and to do things within Mary Ross Park that are all part of the master plan. I mean, access to the waterfront, kayaking, sailing, there's so much more that could be a draw that we could work towards and find grant funding for, that would still accomplish what we all want to accomplish and what the public wants to see there. But I just feel like this has taken on a life of its own, and it has just become this monster of a price tag that's tough to swallow.
Yeah,
And
it
the-
is. It is.
Mhm.
It is.
Commissioner
I
Williams,
cannot disagree.
comment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. You know, I'm in agreement with everyone. One of the things that has me baffled is, you know, as being on the finance committee, the last number that I remember seeing was around $640,000, and now we've jumped up to over $1 million. And I'm like, whoa, we've got flooding in College Park and other parts of the city, and other things that we need to attend to. You know, I feel like just like I did with the Mary Ross project, as I did with the convention center. If we're going to do it, let's do it. If we're not going to do it, let's just move on. And if we already purchased a splash pad for one thing, so we got to do something with that. Where we're going to do it, that's something that we have to discuss. That's something that I think that even the URA can probably help us with. And you know, maybe even our citizens can help us with. What would be a good location if Mary Ross Park is not placed? Where's the place? And then let's get this thing moving forward and get it done in a very you know, quick manner.
Okay, well, let me just comment too. You know, I think Mary Ross Park is a great place for the splash pad. However, the price tag, as Commissioner Harris said, the price tag is well beyond our scope of doing something down there. I think had it not been for such a high price tag, we would have made it work. We could have made it work. I think we could have. Also, I think what came into play was the restrooms as well. We didn't realize that we have to put extra restrooms, but in a sense, Mary Ross Park will get extra restrooms. We may need extra restrooms anyhow when we moving forward. However, I agree with Mayor Pro Tem Martin, who said we need to try to find other avenues of obtaining to pay for this project. I think we could have applied for grants. Maybe we could have done that earlier on, and we maybe could have gotten a little farther down the road with this project. We have listened to the Chamber of Commerce asked us to table it for a while until we can sit down and talk with them. Also, the CVB has said something similar. However, you know, and the strange thing is that they was not there when we was trying to get this done, and all of a sudden now they just pop up.
Sure enough.
But in actuality, you know, the price tag is a stickling point for me. And I know it just seems too much to pay that type of money for a splash pad, even though we're getting bathrooms as well. As far as the location, I have no problem with the location. I think we can make it work. I think we want people to come to our downtown. So to me, I guess we would talk to the URA and ascertain is there some other place we can put this splash pad since we own it now. It's going to cost us $100,000 to install it wherever we install it. I don't know whether that means that we have to build bathrooms with that as well. And, you know, are we putting this into another place, but the cost is still there? So we need to come back at the table again and sit down and talk. And I think it probably deserves a good workshop or a good come together and see what we can do as we move forward with this.
I'll make a motion. We table the splash pad for further discussion.
I'll second that, and then another comment after we go through this process.
Okay. Motion second for table this the splash pad. Go on to a further discussion. Okay. Any questions? Comments?
No, I just would have a comment that if we table this for further discussion and other potential locations, that we still charge the URA to move forward with other installation of improvements and looking towards other avenues that we need to go ahead and move forward with Mary Ross Park.
Yeah, that's what, that was gonna be a part of the discussion after this motion.
Go ahead, Commissioner Harris. You got something to say?
Just some what Commissioner Martin has said, and also in the future aspect of looking down the road to do a combination of the splash pad, of other potential projects that can all be done simultaneously, and the funding, do a comprehensive a proposal of that area, and not the piecemeal and stuff. But my thing that I would say to the URA is, especially for me, and I've always said this and I'll continue to say it, is that when we get this stuff, and that in the finance committee, we look at stuff thoroughly. And I will always say to everybody that brings any type of project before us, my stickler is, please bring the entire picture to us. I hate getting to a point and we've not got all of the information before us, and then we're bound with making decisions based upon the information that's been presented to us, because we looked at the entirety of the installation of this splash pad, but then we didn't have the maintenance costs or the annual cost of upkeep and all that stuff. When we get this stuff, it's not just enough to bring the project to us, but to bring the totality of the cost of the project in implementation and installation and annual maintenance, any cost associated with the project, bring it to us so we can look at the total picture of that project and the total projected cost of that project.
Thanks, Commissioner Harris. Commissioner Casey, anything else?
I'm ready to move on and let's go.
Okay. Commissioner Williams, a comment?
No, sir, not at this time. Not at this time. I just hope that we can move this project along, and those projects that we mentioned earlier, like College Park and those situations, I certainly hope that we can, move those along as quickly as possible as well.
Thank you, sir. A motion is on the floor for us to table this this item until for further discussion, and as Commissioner Mayor Pro Tem Martin said, to also allow the URA to continue moving forward with the development of Mary Ross Park, be it other little small projects that's dealing with Mary Ross Park. Are there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, just call the roll for me, please.
Commissioner Casey,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes. All right, that motion carries unanimously. Mr. Al Verheyen, please understand that we are not, we need further discussion on this. We're trying to, the sticking point of this is basically the cost, but also we want to have a further discussion with our community as well. And I'll get that set up with the CVB and also the Chamber of Commerce. And also would like for you to continue on with projects as we move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to caution the commission that cost of building materials are not getting any cheaper. If you've been to Home Depot lately and picked up lumber, lumber has skyrocketed. Yeah.
Plywood's out of sight.
Yep. So is 2x4 studs. Pine is crazy right now. So just keep that in mind as we continue and you look at pricing things out. It's just going to get more expensive.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
If I may say, Al, I'd like to thank you so much. I think you did a superb presentation at our last meeting, and that's why I kept it going to this one. But there's been much thought and much confabulation here, and I think a desire to see some other things with the cost of this thing. But we sincerely appreciate the work that you and the URA are doing.
We definitely do,
Thank
Al.
you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you all. I'll pass that on to the URA. Appreciate that.
Yeah, please do. I mean, you kind of inherited some things and had to move forward, and we appreciate the job that y'all do very much.
Absolutely.
I'll do that. Thank
Should
you.
be noted, I think everybody's probably seen they started turning dirt over at the Perry School site. I saw it the other day, so that's a positive. Keep that in mind as we move forward. That's a great project, hopefully moving forward.
Amen.
Thank you, everybody. All right, we'll move right along. We're at item number 6, city attorney item. Consider approval of resolution number 2020-19, which is support of House Resolution 164, providing for amendment to the Georgia Constitution governing the collection and use of delegate fees. Ms.
Good evening. Sorry.
Who's presenting?
I'm going to start, and I'm going to turn it over and let Rachel discuss a little bit of it, and then I'll close out on the resolution, because the resolution is fairly simple. I think I'm going to let Rachel go through a little bit more of the technicalities, but the real crux of this is fees are being assessed across the state. The way we would look at it, I think the best way to explain it is if we have our certain enterprise funds within the city where whatever fees we take in must be earmarked and placed in that enterprise fund, and they must be used in accordance with that fund. So, for example, stormwater utility fee, those are collected, put in a separate account, and they must be used for stormwater improvements. There's issues at the state level with fees similar to that, and I'll turn it over. But essentially, this resolution supports the amendment that would hopefully bridge the gap and require that fees collected for a specific cause be used for that cause and nothing else. So Rachel, if you want to take over from there.
Yes, thank you, Brian. And can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you guys all for allowing me to be in this virtual space with you this evening. It's definitely a little bit different than what I'm used to, but I'm happy to be here. I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen. All right, and hopefully you guys can all see that there. So for those folks that might be listening in, my name is Rachel Thompson. I'm the Executive Director of Glenn Environmental Coalition. We are an environmental justice and environmental health advocacy organization based here in Brunswick and providing services throughout the Georgia coast. The Georgia Water Coalition has been working since 2004 on a constitutional amendment that gives the Georgia General Assembly the authority to appropriately dedicate fees. In the 2018 legislative session, Representative Jay Powell introduced an amendment that had wide support and passed the House with nearly a unanimous vote. In March of this year, just before the pandemic hit, the Georgia State Senate agreed to this amendment with a unanimous vote. They voted, this vote allowed the constitutional amendment, or Amendment 1, to be decided on by Georgia voters in this year's election. So for folks that have already voted, they might have seen this on the ballot, or if you've seen a sample ballot, this is Amendment 1. Under the Georgia Constitution, legislators can adopt laws creating fees to fund state programs, but they can't ensure that those collections will be used for their intended purposes. Instead, the collections go into the state's general fund, and it's left to budget writers to appropriate the money. These collected fees are intended to fund a number of community programs, including hazardous site cleanups, teen driver education programs, law enforcement training, and illegal tire dump cleanups, just to name a few. If the state collects fees for a specific purpose, those funds should be used for that purpose. Specifically of concern for our organization and the Brunswick community are the solid waste and hazardous waste trust funds. Since they were created in the early 1990s, over 40% of the collected funds have been diverted to pay for other portions of the budget. That's over $200 million that has not been spent by our state for hazardous waste cleanups and cleaning up old tire dumps. And that's just the solid waste and hazardous waste trust funds. That doesn't include any of the other state trust funds designed to support other local community programs. Georgia has 500 recognized hazardous waste sites, as you can see in the picture on the right of this screen. Communities that are living on the fence lines of hazardous waste sites deserve the funding that they need to clean up these toxic areas as it was intended, especially when our residents and our citizens are already paying for it. So what can we do? Amendment 1 on the ballot this year will allow for these fees to be dedicated when they are created and or renewed. This amendment is packed with safeguards that give the state flexibility to respond to financial emergencies while ending bait and switch fees as normal practice. So today we're requesting support from the city to pass a resolution that will send a strong message to Brunswick voters that they too should support Amendment 1 on the ballot, and they should vote yes when they're voting in this election season. And that's really all I have today with that. If y'all have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I can hand it back over to Brian. Thank you.
Thank you.
Essentially, you've heard the presentation. The resolution is relatively straightforward. This is an amendment that is supported by both Georgia Municipal Association and the Association for Georgia's County Association. So ACCG and GMA are both supporting the amendment. And that's essentially what the resolution sets forth. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them, but
Yes,
it's relatively straightforward. Yes, sir.
Rachel just said that we are adopting a resolution that would tell our citizens that they too should vote. Can we do that? Tell our citizens what to vote for?
We're not telling them what to vote. We're just we are passing a resolution in support of the amendment.
Right. We can't. Well, I kind of said that we're telling them they should vote for it too.
And we're not directing anyone to how they should vote. Rachel's organization can't do that. Right. But her organization can obviously do that. And I believe that's what they're doing.
Yes. And Mayor Harvey, I would definitely say that I'm not asking you to tell your citizens how to vote, but that the GEC supports voting yes. And we hope that your support just on the amendment itself, not necessarily telling your voters how to vote on it.
All right, that sounds good.
I think we're setting the stage for transparency and for, you know, things to be carried out under the auspices and thoughts of what any normal person would think if they're, you know, in this situation. So
it will help to get some tires off the side of the road, to have some state participation with dollars, no question.
Right. So the resolution, to be clear, supports the passage of HR 164, which is amendment number 1 on the ballot.
Yes. Rachel, have you had the same resolution sent to the county as well?
Actually, the only other county that has passed this resolution is Athens Clark up in North Georgia. You guys would be the second in the state.
Oh,
we're progressive.
I'm impressed. Any further questions, commissioners?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution supporting amendment number 1.
Second.
Probably motion second for the adoption of amendment number 1.
Some tires off the road.
Here's the seriously approval of resolution number 20-19, which is amendment number 1. Any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Those opposed have the same sign, same right. Hearing none from the opposing side, I believe the ayes have it. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Brian.
Commissioners and Mayor Harvey. Y'all have a good evening. Thank you so much.
All right. All right, item number 7, consider approval of deed of conveyance between the city of Brunswick to Brunswick Glen Joint Water and Sewer Commission. Our city attorney is here again.
I just shared my screen. Can everybody see the printout from GIS on my screen?
Yes, we couldn't see it before on the other black and white we had.
Yeah, I saw that in the packet, so I wanted to make sure to bring a color one tonight so that everybody could see the parcel. So a little bit of background on what's going on. I know that the commission asked for a comprehensive list of the remaining properties from joint water and sewer. There are, at the moment, I've gotten a list and there's only about 5 that are left. And the issue with bringing them all at the same time is that some of them need surveys to be completed. Some of them, they're still working on where the utilities are located within the parcel. And so they're just kind of, there's not the ability to bring them all at once. So this is one of those properties that they have completed the survey. They've determined where the right of way, where the line comes into the lift station and where it exits the lift station. And now they're asking for the property to be conveyed. I sent this one to the city manager and we discussed it, but this is the property. It's on the corner of K Street and Newcastle. I hope if you can see my mouse, you can see that the lift station is located on the sort of the backside of the parcel. Behind it is an old alleyway, Newcastle Street Lane. There's actually a water line that runs down Newcastle Street Lane, and I believe a sanitary sewer enters into the backside of that lift station and then exits back out onto Newcastle, and it sort of makes a little curve and goes north onto Newcastle Street. So what they're asking, the reason that they're asking for the entirety of the parcel is that is how the parcel is laid out currently. And they would need almost a full easement across the bottom, or excuse me, the western portion abutting Newcastle Street. And looking at that, because of the way that the line runs through the property, I think it'd be very difficult for the joint water, for us not only to subdivide the property, but in reality, I think it would be easier to have them. We'd either have to subdivide and grant an easement immediately over the new subdivided parcel, and then I think it would render it nearly unbuildable. So what you have before you tonight is a deed that would convey over that parcel, this particular parcel, to the joint water and sewer. It clearly houses a lift station, and it would be an appropriate conveyance.
What's the total acreage of that parcel? You know?
Yes, 0.3.
0.3, okay. But
Yeah,
it has,
go ahead.
has lots in it, right?
I'm sorry?
6 lots?
I don't think it would probably be maybe one, potentially.
It says
I mean, the
6
lift station sitting on top of
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true.
maybe 2 substandard lots and 1 full lot. The way it's laid out, I think it would be, I mean, it's an L-shaped piece of property with the sewer and main line running in a direction that I feel it would be, I don't know what else you could do with it if you held on to it. But again,
There was a time when they were going to mothball that lift station. And I came by there today and I noticed a lot of construction going on, but at one time that was supposed to be declared surplus.
Well, Commissioner Casey, I'll take a look at it. I'm still on that board. I will ask that question and find out and get back with you.
Like I say, it's just all kind of hustle and bustle and construction looking around there right now. But I know at one time they were going to and it may have had something to do that they have some reuse for the rerouting of everything from North Glen. I don't know, but I think it would be worth looking into to make sure that they do have active plans for it. But I would say with the construction they do, but it never hurts to ask.
Well, I can
Be
find
happy to-
out for you for
Okay.
sure.
Mr. Mayor, in that case, I'd like to offer a motion that we defer this item until you can get back with us on what's going on with that property.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams and Mayor Pro Tem. Motion second, so we can defer this item to our next meeting until we find some more information about this. Thank you, Commissioner Casey, too, for bringing that to our attention. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand if you can.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposers have the same right. Hearing nothing from the opposer side, I believe the ayes have it. So that motion carries. Thank you. Okay, Commissioner, we have come to the end of our regular printed agenda. I know there's a need for an executive session. Yes,
Yes, I'm sorry. Real estate and litigation.
okay. I need a
Just
motion.
looking for my executive session credentials for Zoom. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't recall receiving them, but
I tell you, they all came out on the
15th.
15th. Yes. Look at your emails on 15th if you can. You should
Okay.
be able to find it.
Motion to adjourn to executive session for real estate and what was the other one, Brian?
Litigation.
Real estate and litigation.
second.
Motion second for us to go into executive session for real estate and litigation. For the comments, all in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, have the same sign. It appears the ayes have it. Okay, we will go into executive session, after which we will come back and adjourn our meeting. So I thank everybody for coming out, everybody who participated. I thank everybody who was on board listening to our meeting tonight, and we appreciate it very much. So, all right, we will go into executive session. Thank you. Okay, seems like we're back waiting on Commissioner Williams.
I think at the very end of the executive session, he said, I'm going to try to get back into the regular scheduled meeting, but you can adjourn if you want. I'm not making that.
Got a quorum. I'll make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
A second.
The motion is second that we adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There's
Say
3 of us.
bye.
Good night.
Yes.
Good night. Thank you, everyone.
Night, everybody.
See you.
Good night.
Thank you all.